County.
Yeah.
His daughters.
Yes. So, I've given him the code. He can get in. He said he can't access his emails. No, I just sent. He said he can't access his emails.
Oh,
So they just gave me the code and I sent it to him, so he should be able to get in. But give him a call. All right, kia ora everyone. And apology for the mayor for a few minutes late, which is why I didn't hear, but apparently he is coming. So we're starting off with vertical delivery. So welcome, Darren. Kia ora.
Morena tātou, Darren Moses, Head of Department for Vertical Capital Delivery. Just going to run through the activity plan and the service we provide. My service and the team service, we're about 15 staff. We provide an internal professional project management function that delivers the part of the capital program, which is essentially from the ground up. We are providing this service to primarily the citizens and community group, so working with our colleagues in, for example, parks, rec and sport, libraries, to deliver their capital projects, to allow them to deliver their services. It's a fairly simple level of service around project management in terms of measurements on time, cost, quality and health and safety. We've been doing this successfully now for many years, certainly in numbers since the earthquake days. Some of the current examples of the projects we're delivering for the organisation include the Matatiki at Hornby, Court Theatre Performing Arts, Cathedral Square improvements. We also take the lead on the client-side function for Te Kaha, Parakiori, the museum redevelopment, working with external partners on the old municipal chambers. So it's a fairly well-defined service. It's been very successful over a number of years, and really there is no change proposed to this level of service. Our funding comes from the capital program. So when elected members confirm capital projects, the cost of that funding includes the cost of our team providing the delivery of that service. So we are fairly cost accountable against the cost of the project. And we are also accountable to those measures I talked about in terms of time, cost and quality. And you'll hear later the reporting on that comes from my colleague Andrew that runs the PMO. So that is our service. One of the things that we're quite proud of in terms of some of our work we do beyond what I'd call the simple time, cost and quality, we do have the ability to influence a lot of the climate resiliency work that goes into the projects when they're approved. So we work with our internal partners to ensure that we derive as much value in thinking early in the project around the climate resiliency and climate goals. So ensuring that the projects are well scoped at the front to consider whole of life and some of those climate goals in terms of energy efficiency, environmental outcomes, and obviously with the recent approval of the South Library, we've had a fantastic opportunity to work there as well in achieving some of those carbon zero targets too. So quite a broad service within the project management realm, but it's one which has been proven to be quite effective over a number of years. Therefore, we don't seek any great change to our level of service. Don't think there's anything else I really wanted to drill into there, so I'm happy to take questions.
Any questions on vertical? I was actually surprised that the work in the square is vertical. I thought that would be under roading, really.
Funded by our colleagues in transport, but delivered through the vertical world in terms of something slightly different in terms of its profile beyond the traditional, say the Waka Kotahi model or anything else. So closely working with the commercial stakeholders, ensuring our colleagues at Christchurch NZ, we're working with them in terms of the timing, for example, when the Women's World Cup was here. So just providing a slightly different lens beyond the traditional, I'd call it, the transport world.
Good. Sarah.
Thanks, Darren. Just wondering how, so we're getting right to the very end now of the earthquake rebuild stuff. And so how does the office now transition from that kind of mode to the more kind of BAU mode? And what's the sort of the outlook over the next sort of 5 to 10 years for that? Yeah,
so I've done quite a bit of work around that. I guess we kind of got out of earthquake mode about 18 months to 2 years ago. There's a couple of residual projects here, arguably, but we're now in what I'd call a day-to-day BAU model. So the team in terms of its sizing. So we only exist if there are projects to deliver. So it's as clearly linked as that. We hold a core team, and if things come up or go down, then we can resource that around contractors or fixed term employees. But certainly some of the bigger projects still have a couple of years in them. And then beyond that, the organisation obviously, and part of this current LTP, will need to consider what the I'll call it the non-horizontal capital program looks like. So a lot of the work now is refurbishment work or other things that we're not building anything new anymore. We're delivering projects that enable other service providers to continue to run their businesses effectively and efficiently, and those sorts of things.
Yeah, great, thanks.
Cool. Councillor Fields.
Kia ora, Darren, thank you. Just the table on page 20. Could you just talk me through that a little bit? Like, sort of what I'm looking at is kind of over the period of the LTP is a sort of numbers that bounce around a little bit. So I'm just kind of like, I'm struggling to get my head around how they sort of move around and the consistency there.
Yeah,
I don't quite get it.
I'll try and simplify it. My team recover their costs primarily against the capital project, and we operate in a model whereby 75% of their time of a working week is required to be capitalised against the capital project. The remaining 25% is what you might call an OPEX cost around training, annual leave, sick leave, those sorts of bits and pieces. The ups and downs, and they do appear to move up and down there a bit. I would say that if you focus on the bottom part there, which is the funding, you'll see that essentially this is 100% funded through the rates. In other words, through the capital project part of it. That the rest of it, if I could say, is essentially an internal finance function to balance the box to that regard.
So the let's just say, just looking at the overheads and direct and other costs. So from an annual plan this year of 774 to LTP projection next year of 267. Am I reading that correctly? No.
You are. I'll actually have to do...
Because that's quite a step change.
It is. I'll provide a post-briefing note on that if you like.
Right out. That's cool. Thank you.
Happy to do that.
Thank you.
Councillor Donovan.
Good, Darren. Can I just get, I'm not sort of as familiar with this area, but in terms of the post-earthquake projects that you guys are working on, I see the South Library, one of the projects that you're involved with. Are you looking at to take on any of the projects in areas that haven't quite recovered after the earthquake? So I'm thinking about parts of the eastern suburbs which are still on that journey.
I guess we could, as a unit of professional project managers. Our primary focus is to deliver the vertical part of the program. We do reach out and provide a service to others, if obviously thinking in the whole of council framework. I haven't had any involvement in that. It's primarily the vertical capital part of the world at the moment, although we are providing, again, management oversight of a number of external party things, like the museum, for example. I'm on the steering group there. Parakiori, I'm on the steering group for that, partnering with the people doing the old municipal chambers. So our primary focus, though, is the capital program defined by council that's in the vertical world, which may be the official answer in terms of the activity plan, I guess.
What would be the process to get some advice on that? Because I'm aware that there was some quite exceptional work done with the delivery of Neville Point in terms of bringing together different silos of work. And I think that would be a similar sort of situation in that some of the projects in the east where you've got different types of capital projects that are being delivered at the same time, but they all need to link up.
As a program.
Yeah, master plan, the bridge and other bits of work that are all underway at the moment.
So we'll happily provide some advice. That will be really dependent on what council determines it wishes to do. And once we fully understand that, then it will be management's job to deploy the resources to get those delivered, however best to do that.
Does that mean we'll get advice back? I just want to check
Yeah,
the process.
the
Yep.
clarity select
Okay,
in
great.
terms of specifically what, to then be able to determine which are the right people to work on it. So do you require Councillor Donovan to give you a list of the projects she has in mind particularly? She most certainly can do, but it will be dependent on what's approved in the LTP. I think that would be helpful. And then
Understood.
that you've got something to take forward for approval or not. All right, are there any other questions, Darren? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work, the excellent work.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So now we will welcome, is it building consenting now? David Griffiths and, Stefan Thomas. Yes. I'm just trying to read this run sheet the right way. Welcome, Stefan.
Hi, thank you. Good morning. So I'm Stefan Thomas. I'm my substantive position is Head of Technical Services and Design, but currently seconded to Head of Building Consenting, but I'll run through the TSD activity plan for you today. So Technical Services and Design Unit serves as the in-house design and professional services office of Christchurch City Council. It's basically an internal consultancy whose responsibility is to design and review designs of a significant portion of the capital program. Its technical specialists possess intrinsic knowledge of all council infrastructure, allowing them to provide advice on the impact of any planned or unplanned event on both community and council infrastructure. It's 90% capital funded and is staffed by a core team that can be increased or decreased based on demand, and augmented by external consultants. By providing technical advice and support on capital projects and some operational work, TSD plays a crucial role in reducing the reliance on external consultants. Additionally, having this team in council means that council has access to technical specialists and designers who can be readily available in any unplanned event. And some examples of that are Morehouse Ave overbridge truck strike, flooding on the old Waimak Bridge, where structural engineers went into assessments, and geotechnical and structural responses to, say, banks militia, storm events or earthquakes. And it results in council saving money, as well as keeping the market honest by creating creative tensions, influencing competitive tendering, and through its critical contract supervision task to ensure that work is completed to the appropriate standards. So some of the services that we provide include structural design of new and existing structures, geotechnical advice, parks and landscape design, including landscape assessments, environmental planning, transport design, water and waste design across the full range of the water assets, architectural design, surveying services, including topographic, cadastral, levelling, drone surveys, visualisations, laser scanning, contract management and supervision of council's capital work projects, quantity surveying or cost engineering, herpetology, detailed design and contract documentation, and 3D visualisations. So quite broad in what we do. So the graph just outlines some of the recent years, the number of requests for professional services that have come through from internal units, with last year just over 800. And our key customers are internal business units, including transport and waste management, Three Waters and Parks, amongst many more. So our experts hold local and institutional knowledge of council processes and standards, which is more cost effective than having them to hold them in-house rather than relying on external people to provide that. Lower charge-out rates due to the non-profit nature of the unit means that council projects benefit from more senior design and advice than what was available at market for a reduced cost. And the fact that the design staff are employed by council means that they've got a long-term interest in the outcome and not influenced by commercial interests. And it saves council about $7 million a year by incomparable design costs by having it in-house. Obviously that's how we align with the community outcomes. and with the strategic priorities. So climate resilient goals, where applicable, projects will include sustainable and energy efficient designs to reduce greenhouse emissions, including consideration of materials specified, low emission methodologies, and waste minimisation. And include promotion of better landscape, building and urban design through sustainable design principles, design of and building of transport links that promote resource efficient and active modes of transport, incorporate more vegetation into the built environment, more trees and gardens in Central City, and promotes innovative and sustainable design practice. So there are some of the things we can do around climate. And for us, I guess the key issues, key issue or opportunity for us is around technology growth, and just keeping abreast of the new technology and how we can use it. Levels of service, we're not proposing any changes to substantial change to level of service. It's just wording a clarification to make it clearer about what they are. And finally, so as I mentioned earlier, we're about 90% capital funded. The other 10% is when we charge to operational tasks, such as when we get called out to those unplanned events, which is stuff that needs to be done anyway. And I think that's about all I was going to cover off.
Thank you. Councillor Barber, Councillor Johansson.
Thanks, Stephen. Do you ever get involved in sort of like community projects like the building of a community centre whereby perhaps the community is funding it and the build? Do you get involved in any, have you been involved in any projects like that at all?
Only from the perspective we would get involved if it was I guess a capital project that council was having some funding to, because we charge to that capital project, similar to, I guess, the way Darren explained it for vertical.
Yeah. So if there was a community group that wanted to build a community centre, there was a defined gap in the network plan, and they were looking to take that on board, would you work with them to on a design if council was funding, say, half of it or something like that?
There's a possibility it would need to be able to, I guess, charge our time to a project, but and I guess it probably depend on I guess the legal arrangement there as well around responsibility of the design. But there's a potential for us to contribute to community projects.
Did you say there's potential risk or there's potential for us?
Both, I suppose.
Yeah.
We just have to assess that risk because if, I guess if we're, especially if something like a structure or something, if we're designing, there's obviously a risk long term to that. But we generally work on, I guess, just council projects.
Right.
We don't do a lot of work for externally.
But we also have an urban design team, don't we, that gives advice on things like that. It might be more appropriate.
Yeah, can I just ask, were you involved in the hub, the South Brighton hub development? Did you know about that at all?
No, I'm not sure.
No, okay, no, that's fine. I just thought that you guys maybe had been.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
It's all good. Okay, thanks.
Councillor Johansson.
Thank you. Thank you for that really interesting presentation. It's quite cool to see the benefit around doing things internally. I was just curious if you designed cycleways, or if not, if we could look at the opportunity of bringing the cycleways back in-house, because it seems like we'd save a lot of money. And I'm also mindful of a lot of the street stuff that we're doing with private consultants as well. So just in terms of an opportunity, I just wondered how we're looking at that.
I'm just wondering if you've used the correct words there. I mean, are you sure it would save a lot of money? We don't really know.
No, I'm asking how do we look at that? Like, okay, may save a lot of money, but I think the evidence is pretty clear in here that where we have internal units doing the design work, it's saved quite a lot of money compared to
maybe you could put that as a question to Stefan.
Contractors. So I guess I was just really keen to understand if there's more that we could do in-house, and if so, how would we do that? And particularly interested in what's happening in terms of who's designing the safer streets and the cycleways.
Yeah, so we've currently staffed by about 100 staff across the different disciplines we do. So we've got 6 different teams. We've got one team around transport design, which the cycleways would come under. The decision was made at the beginning of that program that such a large volume of work that most of it would go external. We do some work on in relation to other projects around cycle design, cycleways design. We wouldn't be able to do the full program because it's just too large for what we get up to do. Yeah, does that sort of answer your question?
So I guess, I mean, is there any way that we sort of benchmark around what we're paying for sort of cycleway design and what we would pay internally and what the difference in cost would be? And so if we put the investment into hiring permanent staff in your unit.
So just leave that as the question, the first bit.
Well, I mean, I guess it's about, for us, it's about probably trying to strike that right balance between the size of our units and also and what's been done externally. And I guess the benefit of having of still putting some work external is you have you have retained technical knowledge in the external sector in Christchurch without. So if we're not providing work to that sector, then the expertise will go out of town effectively and do work for other areas. So it's sort of I guess it's good to strike the right balance between having an internal resource and putting some stuff externally as well. And with the transport design team, there's a number of other road safety projects or other transport related projects that they also get involved in as well. So if we did more cycleways, then we would have less of that work. And then I guess that was part of the decision at the start of the program, was if they focused, if the team focused on cycleway, then they wouldn't do all the other road safety work and effectively lose some of the skills sets in there as well, get quite pigeonholed into the cycleway. So we do a bit of everything to keep the expertise at the right level.
So you're feeling that we have got the balance about right?
I think so, yeah.
Well, I'd be quite keen to know when that contract's coming up. Obviously, our cycleways have been pushed out for a lot longer so they've been over a longer period of time. And I think it would be good just to get an understanding of what the cost difference would be doing it internally versus contracting it out.
But Stefan's just given us the answer why it can't all come internally. Lynn,
It can, if we make the decision, it can. But to get I'm just asking to get the information.
Yeah,
not
hang on.
So as part of our recent discussion about Section 17A reviews, one of the areas where we thought it would be helpful to undertake a review would be technical services. And that would potentially encompass a consideration of the right balance of outsourcing versus insourcing over the long term. So that can certainly be considered as part of the terms of reference. And those terms of reference will be put to council before a review is initiated. So you'll have an opportunity at that point to have an input as to whether that should be part of the review.
So when will that be complete? Will that be in time to
so
inform
we
the
are
LTP?
working on that at the moment. I can't recall off the top of my head, but certainly within the next 6 to 8 weeks, there will be a level of sharing of draft terms of reference.
Pre-LTP.
Just hopefully pre-LTP. I'm just aware that there's quite a lot to be done.
But can I just get the fundamental information around the technical design that it would cost us to do in-house versus how much we're spending on the outsourcing of the cycleway?
That may be a large piece of work, is it?
Well, it shouldn't be. I mean, we've got some pretty good.
But that will come through the Section 17A. There's no point doubling up.
So I'm also very conscious that our finance group is incredibly stretched at the moment in order to get the core LTP in place. What I'd like to do is to talk with the head of service and just find out what is involved in answering your question and when we're going to be able to do that, commensurate with the other work that's in place for the LTP.
It shouldn't, like, if you look at on page, sorry, there's no page number, but just if you look at the snapshot of provision and use, it's got statistics there about how much work we do. I'm simply asking that to be broken down around the cycleways and get a sense of the cost which we must do if we've been able to get that information. So, but anyway, any information we could get, even if it was just getting an understanding how much we're spending on the outsourcing of the cycleway design work, that would be useful.
I don't think that on its own would give you much guidance, Councillor Johansson. Stefan, are you comfortable? Are you comfortable with that responding to that? Is it
In
not
terms
too
of how much we currently spend on the cycleways.
externally?
Yeah, I'd probably.
In the
refer to-
design, it's just the
I'd refer
design.
to my colleagues in the transport unit because they sort of control that project, so it doesn't come through us. So
Oh, yeah, okay, so we'll see what we can do, and if it's too onerous, we'll just wait for the section 17A work, because it will come through in that, won't it? But we've got to understand that the pressure on staff at the moment is enormous, so we don't want to be putting.
I appreciate that. The pressure on our budgets is enormous as well.
Yeah.
And we've got some really good information in this report. If you go to that snapshot, there must be information that sits behind that to understand how it's been arrived at. And I personally think, do you think about cycleways? I mean, we're going to be doing them for a long period of time. So paying external consultants
No, I
a
understand
higher
that
cost
the rationale's
is something we
great,
should be looking at.
Councillor, it's great, no one's objecting to that, so we'll see what we can get back. Councillor Templeton.
I just want to point out a couple of things, in that we just made a decision just only a few weeks ago to extend the contract for the cycleways thing for a short period of time, so that we could do some more looking at stuff. So it was in one of our meetings just in the last month. So that should be, there might be some additional information in there. And the other thing is,
that was for the building,
That's
not
the
for the design.
construction.
I'm just asking about.
We're
the
talking
design.
about design team.
yeah, but we also, yeah. So the other thing to note is that currently in our draft LTP there are no cycleways, and so employing a large number of staff to do the design work for them when there are no cycleways does seem a little bit, so we need to make sure that those cycleways get in there, so we've got some work to do.
That's right. We've got to consider the pipelines of work and the institutional knowledge, both within the organisation and externally, that continues. Councillor Scandrett.
I think that that it is a really good point that Councillor Johansson's brought up, because if it's a long-term game of playing with the cyclones, and irrelevant of what's in the long-term plan or not, if we do designs which are the correct designs, they can be shelved and yet pulled out when required. So it's I think it's a good thing to look at, because our staff, it's irrelevant which unit, they're in-house for a reason. If it wasn't in-house, then everything would be out and everything would be contracted, and the contractor has to put at least 20%, 25% on, because they're running a private business. But there's ups and downs for everything. But I think it's a fair question to ask, irrelevant of the discussion around it.
Thank you. All right. Thanks, Stefan.
Thank you.
Now it's David Griffiths, and Head of Strategic Policy and Resilience. Head of Resilience.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nothing to worry about, still under control.
Nothing to see. Excellent. Is that all then? Thanks, David. Right
Okay,
away.
so what on earth is, thank you. So strategic asset management. You coming? So the strategic asset management team sits within my unit, which is the strategic policy and resilience unit. So we've got strategic policy and climate resilience and strategic asset management. With me today is Lee Farnhill, who's the team leader for strategic asset management.
Morning, Lee.
So this activity is a support service that supports our asset stewards within the organisation. So we provide a support service looking to increase the asset maturity of our assets and our processes. We work with our colleagues to develop asset improvement plans and generally looking to increase the asset maturity of our assets. I'll be talking to you shortly about the most recent asset maturity assessment. So we'll be coming back to that in about an hour. This service is rates funded. We have 9 FTE within the unit. We have 4 levels of service. They are management levels of service. We have made some changes to realign our levels of service from the previous asset management unit and looking to align them with the purposes and direction of what we have now within this unit. So ready for questions.
Short and sweet. Councillor Templeton.
Thanks so much for that. I'm a little concerned at the moment. So over the development of the long-term plan, one of the things that we put in our letter of expectations was around the prioritisation of climate resilience and all of those kind of things within our LTP. But when I have asked specifically around a couple of areas, I've been told that actually the key driver for the LTP is deliverability and affordability, and that implying that the climate change thing is kind of not the top consideration. And I'm just wondering what assets and other things that we have currently at risk through the LTP process that aren't kind of being captured and prioritised, that will have that sort of short, medium or long-term risk for the city, both socially, economically, financially for the council and ratepayers, those kind of things.
So can you, sorry, I'm struggling to see the question, the risk to the assets?
Yeah, what are our key risks when it comes to climate change with this LTP? That's
with the assets.
With our assets, and are they being captured appropriately within our programs of work?
So this, yeah, I guess that's probably a slightly difficult question for me to answer. My role and the strategic asset management role, as I say, is an internal service to support our colleagues who are the stewards of the assets. So my colleagues who are the heads of service for Parks, Rec and Sport, Transport, Three Waters, are the stewards of those assets, and within their asset management plans, they will look at those risks, and they will allow and quantify what needs to be done within their own activities. I do look across those asset management plans, and we do look across through my other roles in developing the infrastructure strategy, and also in terms of supporting, again, my colleagues through the climate resilience team. So I don't know if I can give you the specific answers that you're looking for.
But you're helping each of the areas,
yes,
bring those ones specifically.
Yes. So we identify what those risks are. We look at, so through the development of the LTP, we have worked closely with colleagues around the development of their asset management plans and their activity plans. Yeah. And all of my staff across my unit in the different areas have worked closely with them to help them ask themselves the right questions and then present those back to you. And just sitting here today, I've heard both Darren and Stefan talk, for example, to climate as they presented their activity plans. So that's an example of where we are actually engaging and influencing in that space.
Yeah. So, but each of these is coming to us individually.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, yeah. Is there a place that is holding that overall perspective? So each of these departments might separately go, well, actually, it's probably not a priority for us this time round. And if they all do,
you're talking risk, aren't you?
Yeah.
There.
Then
yeah. So it's probably getting slightly off topic, but yes, we are looking across the organisation, but I do acknowledge that the way in which all of these activities are sliced up, it does make it more difficult to get that overarching view, particularly when you step back and look towards our strategic priorities. But in terms of the development of the infrastructure strategy, that will be a place where we bring some of this stuff together. And you'll see that in the coming weeks where we're at in terms of bringing that together. So there are places where you will see it, but I haven't got an overarching presentation for you specifically around climate resilience.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Councillor Coker, then Councillor Johansson.
In the appendix part under the levels of service, so there's one deleted level of service and one that's amended, that 13.12.31 and 13.12.28, which in the wording look identical, but one's deleted and then the other one's amended. They obviously aren't identical. It's on page 86 of the agenda.
Is
that the deletions?
Is this the deletions?
Yeah, and amendments. There's 2 deletions and 1 new and then multiple amendments.
I think there was one level of service that had different methods of measurement. So we reduced that down just to simplify it.
Okay. I'm a little bit concerned about the deleted one because it says we're going to increase our asset management maturity, and then we're getting updates. The new plan is to send it to ELT, who probably would have known that anyway, but it's just been taken out. It seems, I don't know, I don't know if that's concerning or not.
So part of this is to do with the role of this unit. So I cannot, as a head of unit, increase our asset management maturity because I'm not the steward of those assets. So it is of no value having a level of service requesting me to do something I cannot do at the end of the day. So I provide, as you will hear shortly, engage externals to undertake an asset management assessment, maturity assessment, and I take that information, I share that with my colleagues. I develop an improvement program in partnership with them for them to implement. But I, as a head of service, cannot increase asset management maturity.
So then for each asset owner and their levels of service, do they have something about increasing their asset management maturity as a measure for them? Because actually that's where it should sit then, you're saying.
Yeah, so we've just done and signed off a new what we call a RACI, which identifies the responsibilities, accountabilities for asset management. I'd have to go and have a look in their activity plans.
There is an asset management improvement program that we'll talk about after, which that feeds into what sets the expectations of what we're trying to achieve for each individual area. So it breaks it down by team. So the focus will be for them is to deliver that asset management improvement program, which there will then increase the maturity. So that's the piece of work that we do after the big assessment. And then what we've done this time around is we've extracted information from the asset management plans about the improvements that they want to make, combined it with the information provided from the external consultant who undertook the review, and push that together. And that is currently, I don't know whether we discussed that, but that's actually been constructed and is ready to go out to the teams this week. So we'll push that out. But as David said, it's on the teams to deliver that piece of work. We only oversee it and then report back, and our role is to try and manage it and to try and keep it moving. But it does fall down to each head of service and each asset area to actually increase their maturity.
So I think the action that comes from this is a follow-up once the improvement plans are in place. I think what we need to do, Councillor Coker, is just to do a double check and ensure that that accountability mechanism is embedded in the relevant asset management plans and for each of the heads of service. They are at different levels of maturity, so it's not necessarily a one size fits all. Yeah. And the actions will be quite diverse because of the level of risk and the level of maturity they're currently at. So we'll take an action point to make sure that that is embedded in the asset management plans. Thank you for that.
Kia ora. Councillor Henson.
Yeah, we used to get quite good briefings on the extent of the asset management progress that we were making. Remember, peers used to come in and give us a kind of snapshot of where we were. I haven't seen that, at least for a year since the election. I just wondered, I guess I just don't have any sense of how much information we have and what level it's at for each of our heads of service or our units. And I mean,
So we're
in
going to
the
cover that.
transport space, there's been, you know, like when I've asked, for example, what's the priority in terms of condition for the curb and channel, I'm told we don't have a list. Likewise with footpaths, I know we're trying to catch up and do the work. So I kind of wonder what the bigger picture is in terms of our asset management, the information that we have and where we've got to. And I know that we've invested a lot in IT, apparently with new sort of software technology that contractors can give us a lot better asset condition data as well. But like big picture, in terms of the risk around not having the asset management stuff done so that we can make good decisions, where are we sitting? Like what would be the top
well, I'm going to
3?
talk to you about that in about an hour.
It was about an hour, half an hour ago.
Yeah,
Half an hour.
Yeah.
so that'll
Or
talk
any
about
second.
that'll talk about the level of maturity that we've found where we are as of today. But the information that you are asking for, which is the detailed information, that needs to come out of those operational teams. They need to tell you what their focus is. We're only providing advice and trying to give them a steer, not tell them what programs they need to do, but just trying to point them in the right direction. Hence the reason the maturity assessment picks up some of those things, looks at the evidence base and tries to set that direction. And then what filters in after that is the asset management improvement program, which tries to prompt them into a direction to gain that maturity.
I guess the big question for us though is, do we have sufficient resources in this program to be able to make sure that we're making good decisions? And if I looked at curb and channel renewals, I mean, my answer would probably, my feeling would be no.
Yeah, and just leave it at the question
So
they can answer the question. Do we have enough resources?
Well, are you asking me whether I have enough resources in the strategic asset management team, or are you asking whether we have sufficient resources in each of the units? Because they're quite different answers.
Yeah, and that's what I guess in terms of what we're doing in the LTP, my preference would be have a degree of independence about doing that assessment so that we can have confidence.
Yeah.
So that would probably
I'll give you a teaser if you like for what's to come. The different units have different levels of maturity, as we've discovered through the most recent assessment, and those levels of maturity align with the level of resourcing that those particular units have. So, for example, our transport and Three Waters teams have a maturity level or rating of intermediate, which is a relatively good, and I'll go through what the different ones are later, but that's a relatively good score. And they have a reasonable amount of resource in the asset management space in those particular units. And there is a requirement on us, for example, with the transport team, to secure the funding that we get through Waka Kotahi, to be able to provide them with good levels of information. So that's generally why that's at a better level. Other units who have less resource have poorer ratings, which I'll show you shortly. Okay. But there is a correlation between those two things. And within this unit, we are really struggling in terms of being able to attract, retain resourcing. So we are struggling.
And that's right across the organisation as well.
Yeah.
Asset management.
Yeah,
it is a struggle out there, just generally in asset management to get people in to be able to do this. So even if teams are resourced or have the vacancies or whatever, it is still a difficult area to get the expertise in.
In the technology investments that we're made, a bit like the previous technical design services, we can see we're doing stuff in-house, but with the technology investment that we've made in asset management, what are we seeing the benefits?
Well, we're not seeing the benefits yet because we haven't completed the investment. So that is a significant program that is underway. We're really getting into the meaty part of that program of work. And again, I'll talk to that shortly, because that is one of the tools that we're going to have, and one of the opportunities that we're going to have to increase the level of maturity within the
Right, so
organisation.
it sounds like we're dipping into the next briefing.
But yeah, I think you
So
are, to be honest.
if there's no more questions, we'll move on to the last presenter, but don't fear, we will see David back again very shortly. About 20 minutes now, maybe.
Oh,
Okay.
I might just
Andrew Robinson, Head of PMO. Morena.
Morena, good morning, everybody. Okay, so the Program Management Office, PMO, I feel like you know us pretty well, but I'll just highlight a few things from this activity plan. Our main activities really centre around strategic planning, capability building in terms of resources and people capability to support that, providing delivery frameworks and support for the delivery of the capital program. So we provide systems and processes around there. We're an independent kind of monitor and reporter of the activity through the F&P committee, as you know, and through our work, we've kind of got a continuous improvement review feedback loop. We were looking to make our systems better, smoother, easier to use. These are all reflected in our management levels of service. In terms of current position, as you know, we've got about a $700 million capital program for 24. And here's just an example of some of the tools, a GIS map that we can provide, or we do provide for a public view, but we provide a number of tools for management sort of support functions as well. A couple of things just down the bottom to draw to your attention that you may not be so familiar with, those last two sentences there. We support and participate in a couple of external agencies. The National Forward Works Viewer is a GIS-based tool where we put all our projects in there as an asset owner to look for project clashes and overlaps with other asset owners who do that. People like Orion and the airport and Ministry of Education and Health, they use the system to inform not only developers, asset owners, and suppliers of the activity going forward, but it's also got a capability to have some further development around overlaying things such as hazard maps and sensitive areas and so forth. So we were central to that development for a few years and only recently handed it over to an independent organisation called established as a trust called Digital Built Aotearoa. So that's a piece of work we've been doing in the background. And we also support Te Waihanga, the New Zealand Infrastructure Commission. We publish on a quarterly basis our capital program to inform, I guess, New Zealand Inc., which shapes government thinking and policy, but also, again, is used by suppliers to look at what's coming up in terms of activity from Christchurch City Council and lots of other organisations as well. We have a wide range of stakeholders across the organisation, a wide sort of span and influence, and we operate in a sort of a collaborative manner across those lists there. Pretty short on this one, community outcomes. Again, we're a sort of a contributor and an influencer, a bit like Darren talked about around some of these outcomes, but in a very important way. And same with strategic priorities, but I'll pause a little bit on the popular topic this morning, climate resilience and embedded carbon management. So we've got some tools and processes and systems that support that. Some of our reporting enables us to flush that out, and you'll see that in the capital schedules and the presentation and briefing that I'm going to do next Tuesday. So we'll have some more discussion around what that looks like and some quantification around those sorts of things as well. So in that sense, we're sort of an enabler. We work with the climate resilience team around that. We've worked with some external agencies about developing some tools that enable us to measure carbon in the capital program, to set a baseline and understanding of that before we get to policy statements around reduction pathways. You probably covered that in there as well. Yeah, I've picked a couple out of here, the two areas around obviously infrastructure and climate change and adaptation that I think key things we're supporting, but we do a range of other things. The levels of service, just a reflection of those key priorities on page 1. No real change, just a little bit like Stefan said, we've tweaked some wording and just made them a little bit sharper. We don't have any assets. We don't spend any money other than we keep an eye on everybody else's expenditure. In our group, we're a very small team, 5.5 FTEs, pretty lean and mean, and our costs are covered through the overhead recovery. And I think that's about it. Thank you.
Do we have any questions for Andrew? Councillor Johannes?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the work you do. As you'll be aware, I'm a big fan of the CPMS sheets. I'm just wondering, like, I'm still getting a lot of people that are really struggling to get information around projects, capital projects, and I just wonder if you have enough resource to be able to provide, I guess, the public-facing information in a way that is easy for people to understand what we're doing.
Yes, I think there's a couple of things there. One is you'll see, and you'll get some access to later this afternoon when we distribute the schedules, so to support the next briefing. Right. We'll have an updated OrbViz tool, which I think you're familiar with, and that's got some really good functionality around project searching and dollars in current program and proposed program in a short description as well. Yeah. And some of those maps and such like also support that.
I guess I'm just a little bit concerned that as we're putting so much stuff online, which is a barrier for some communities, and that I've sent around councils the old board plans, which had really good capital schedules, very easy to understand, very easy to read. Is it? I feel like we're just missing something in terms of the ability to communicate outside of people going into quite, complex web sort of spheres and things like that. So, I mean, is there a resource to actually produce something? And I appreciate you wouldn't want to do it every year, but maybe as part of the board plans, a kind of capital project list that could be put in place.
Yeah, I think they're in place through John Philzell's work, aren't they? The board plans and key priority lists. But the schedules we recently distributed in their sort of work in progress form were done by ward. So I think it depends on obviously there's differing needs and different sort of styles that people want. Some people would like something more interactive and some people would like a schedule. But I think the schedules can get out of date pretty quickly. And they're quite big. There's a lot of information on them, and in my view, they become quite unwieldy, but they might suit some people's styles.
Well, I mean, just having an ability for people to see the capital works from year to year. So, like, one of the problems with the when we consult is you can go on and look at the capital program for the annual plan, but then the LTP one gets, I think, taken offline, then it comes back on at some stage.
Yeah.
Well, so I'm just trying to find a way that we could get some sort of published document every year that would give people a sense of what the capital program is, short of having to go.
Yeah, I know you've already asked it. Lynn's got a comment.
I think it's, yeah.
So what I was going to suggest is we have received feedback from you and from others, and I know that Andrew and the team have been working on the schedules to be distributed today to try and address that. What I'm going to suggest is have a look at what comes out today.
Okay,
if we still haven't managed to address your needs, then let's talk about that. But I'm reasonably confident that we will be able to show you a range of schedules which will meet a variety of needs, as well as the online tool. Yeah. So give us feedback after that.
Okay, that's great.
Thank you.
All right.
And I'll just advertise them a drop-in sessions on Thursday as well.
Yes.
Where you can come and talk about those schedules with us.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I think that's in the elected members lounge.
Yes.
I mean, I appreciate that we can get access to information, but I guess that's more just the public-facing information.
Yeah, no, we get that.
Yeah.
So we'll pick it up. All right. Well, thank you very much. We'll just take a 15-minute break till 10:45.